Hello there. Welcome to my channel. I'm Susan, and this is a place that I love talking with you and sharing with you about everything having to do with having a new baby. To find out more about me, you can go to my website, naturalbeginningsla.com, and there you'll find out more about me, contact information, stuff on my blog, etc., etc. One of the things I do is I teach Bradley Method classes, and I want to go over with you what you learn in my Bradley series. So sometimes people think that the primary purpose or goal of taking a Bradley Method class is just whether or not they have a natural birth. So we are known for helping families who have this goal achieve their goal, and we've been around for a long time. But this is really not the primary goal of our classes. And a lot of times people are surprised to learn that. Are you surprised? So the primary goal and the design of a Bradley Method course is to focus on the health and well-being of mama, so mama and baby, right? And those are primary, and also not just the mother and baby, but really the whole family. It's a very holistic and beautiful program. And when I talk about the health and well-being of the mother and baby and the family, I just don't mean that everyone's alive. I mean, of course, being alive is important, but we're looking at really on a deeper level. We're looking at the physical, the mental, and emotional health and well-being of mama, baby, partner, whatever the family structure is, the whole family. And this time during pregnancy and labor and birth and early postpartum is critical to that foundation. So because this is our goal, there's 12 main concepts that we really hope for you to take away and to integrate, and we really focus on in a Bradley Method series. And this is what all Bradley teachers are supposed to do. And this, I'm really speaking from my own point of view right now in my own classes. So yes, natural birth as a blueprint, right? So we're not beating around the bush here. Natural birth is just physiology, right? And there's a lot of components to it. So this is what is designed by nature over hundreds of thousands and millions of years, really, if we look upon ourselves as mammals. And we are a part, as human beings, we are a part of the natural world. Every cell in your body is a part of nature. The way your heart beats is a part of nature. And although we have a lot of technological advances, and some of them are pretty amazing, I personally really love flushing toilets and piped in water, that still we are part of that process. And it's really important to keep that in mind as we're entering parenting and pregnancy and having a baby, right? Because there's a lot of important principles to think about. And I really like to think about, we have a series of interlinking processes from conception through the early years of life that are foundational, upon which all the rest of our development rests. And science has really shown that the first 1,000 days, which includes conception through the first 2 years of life, are pretty much about 50% of our health. So for our babies and children, that this is being set up during this time. And so this is a critical period and really important and special and profound. So when I'm talking about natural processes, and we're talking about natural birth or understanding the physiology, I'm not talking about just one thing. We're talking about that series of interlinking processes, of which there are many. So let's take what we're looking at right now here in Los Angeles, which is that there's really an induction epidemic. So if there is, when labor begins, if the spontaneous part of it is removed for non-medical reasons, right? And even in medical reasons, we want to be keeping in mind all of these things, what comes next, right? So with induction here, when that's altered, not spontaneous, that can set off a series of events, right? Of what's happening in labor and the moment of birth, where things can come off the rails a little bit, go in a different direction, that changes the trajectory of what's happening. And that could affect the immediate postpartum period. And for a lot of mamas and babies, that can like impact breastfeeding, right? So something which seemed kind of small there in the beginning, right? Just down the line starts shifting the direction of where things go. So something seems small here at the beginning without an awareness of thinking about all the other processes can really shift things. So think about if you're on a ship and you're bound for Puerto Vallarta, that's your destination. Now you're thinking where you're going to go, right? And the ship captain is like, well, I'm going to just shift 1 or 2 degrees. I mean, that seemed like a lot initially, right? But if you just keep going on that and not thinking about the final kind of destination where you want to go, then it can really shift down the line where things go. So this is one of the things that really excites me. I think is important, but really understanding that whole trajectory. We really want to think about this as a blueprint. We think about that series of events, that this is a plan, nature's plan, right? And sometimes there's going to be certain moments where we may have to shift and change in a plan. That's understandable, but we're keeping like the whole design in mind. So otherwise the house might turn out completely different than what we thought, right? So that we're thinking about things and making choices. And that's important. I understand the elephant in the room is the epidural and that pain relief. And I think it's really important not to get hung up on that. It is important to know that we have an over-reliance on technology in the hospital setting that really undermines so many of these physiologic processes and can really impact a family's experience and their life trajectory and the health and well-being of mother and baby, right? So it doesn't mean that technology or certain interventions are bad, and that includes the epidural, because there is a place for every intervention, right? The intervention itself is not good or bad. It's just how these are applied. Is it routine? Is it the mother and the partner, whoever is there, in a position to make choices that feel right to them? Because this impacts their lives, right? And can really throw off that trajectory that I was talking about. And I understand, yes, because we rely on technology and that the institutions and the settings that we have a different model of care and understanding and a paradigm or worldview, that if you're wanting a natural birth or minimizing interventions, that it can feel like a real obstacle course. And you really do have to have a goal. You have to have a goal, and not just a goal in your mind, but you need to prepare in order to make it more likely, and sometimes go outside the box and outside of social norms, right? In order to get the experience that you're seeking and that protects the health and well-being of the mother and baby. So I really like to think about my class in terms of not thinking of any particular outcome. Yes, if you're thinking natural, unmedicated, and minimizing interventions, you do need to know this whole trajectory, and knowing so, and all the things that you need makes it more likely that you will get that. And even in the event where we need to have interventions, right, and choose interventions, that we really know where we're going, the next thing is, and not just relying on others to take care of that, because the others will just make it go in a completely different direction. That's just what the evidence shows and what's happening all around us. So I really like the parents to be knowledgeable and in the driver's seat, so they're in dialogue and conversing and making choices with their provider and making choices that are right for them. And yes, you can have a natural birth. You can have an unmedicated birth. This is absolutely possible. And it can be really beautiful when people have that experience. And that no matter what needs to be done during birth, that the underlying concepts are really about love and connection and being together. That's the foundation. This is where nature is trying to bring you into connection. And that is the foundation of health and well-being. So I'm not looking at just the outcome, but the feelings and the connection of all that is super, really important, whatever birth we need to have. That really brings us to our second major principle, which is the active participation of the partner or other support person. And we call this wonderful person your coach. So the ideas in our classes are based on the ideas of Dr. Bradley, who was, his original book is The Husband Coach Childbirth. And he was a radical during his time, bringing fathers into the birthing room. And he really saw that this was about connecting. This is about this bonding, a peak life experience for the family. And dads in our society can really feel outside and unprepared. And their connection with their baby is really important. They make a big difference in a child's life. So this is a big thing in our classes, is making sure a partner is really involved and understands how important they are and the things that they can do, because they can feel lost have no idea. So there's a lot of guiding principles of things that they can do to have agency. And it's nice, we're in the 21st century here, and we can support. I love the term coach because that can mean anybody, right? It could be a same-sex couple. I've loved all my same-sex couples. It's the same principle, right? That you're committed and you're active partners together, and you know how to support the pregnant and laboring, birthing mother. Some people don't have partners, either by choice or because they're partners away, military duty, or some other reason, right? Work. So sometimes that people have their moms or their cousin, their sister, could be a best friend, doesn't really matter. The whole point of this is that you have someone committed to you and your baby, and it's going to be there to show up for you. Hopefully, I really want this person to support you during your pregnancy and know what to do for you. The labor and birth is crucial. Postpartum period, crucial. Breastfeeding, partner support, or other support is important for the success of breastfeeding. And that first year of life, and really hopefully that whole time that you're parenting this beautiful child that you're bringing into your life. Our next foundation is focusing on nutrition, and we go pretty deep into this, which I really love about our classes. And I love this topic. We can't talk about nutrition too much. We're surrounded by things that can bring us down, and I think it's so inspiring. And this is a critical building block for a healthy pregnancy, the health and well-being of the mother, and the health and well-being of your beautiful baby. So the main thing we focus on is Dr. Brewer's pregnancy diet. That's been around for a while, and it really is supported by a lot of nutrition evidence that we have now. And I do go through it. I have a lot of education, nutrition, and I love talking about this. So I really see it through the viewpoint, a multifocal lens of what's important there, and interpret it through that. And then I really like, this is a great book, Real Food for Pregnancy. She also has a book based on gestational diabetes, and that's her specialty. But Real Food for Pregnancy is good. And there's a lot of things there that do support what we talk about in Dr. Brewer's pregnancy diet. So the next foundational principle is the avoidance of substances that can negatively impact your baby during pregnancy, labor and birth, and breastfeeding, unless necessary. So we're going to look at this on many different levels. That could be things that we're ingesting, or medications, or other toxins. I talked about the first 1,000 days. And so, this time during pregnancy, is a time of fetal programming and imprinting on the baby. Mother is so important, right? That we're supporting her and helping her. And it doesn't mean we have to avoid every single, it's impossible, right? But we kind of lighten the load of toxins. This is really, really important as we're looking at your baby's health and well-being over the long term. And not just that, right? It's also integrating things that are joyful and positive and good. And so that's a big part of it too. And we'll be talking about that and practicing things too, as well. Training for the birth is our fifth major foundational principle. And so thinking about birth itself, labor and birth, as like running a marathon or climbing a very tall mountain or going into the deep water, you want to get ready for that. You wouldn't want to just show up. So this is why our series is 12 weeks long. It's always been 12 weeks long. This is what Bradley teachers have signed up to teach. And during this time, we are implementing the nutrition I talked to you about. You have all this time, whether it's, you're starting your second trimester, moving into your third trimester, right? Exercise and movement for your health and well-being, and prepare you for handling your labor and birth and being ready. We're going to go over specific exercises as well to help you prepare for labor and birth, because a lot of modern life really is the opposite of what we need to do. And that sometimes shows up in labor. It can make labor longer, more difficult, right? So I want you to be ready. And we have this time to work on a variety of relaxation techniques, not just one thing. And that's what I really love about these classes. It's not just one technique, it's a multiple, and you get to find out what really works for you, because not just one thing works for everybody, and your partner gets to know them too. Practicing your labor skills. I do a lot of labor rehearsals starting in class 5, building up over time. So the pregnant mother can learn skills to meet her labor and birth and handling the contractions. And also your coach, your partner, whoever's going to be there to support you during that pregnancy, labor, and birth. So they're learning. They're also training up your coach to really know what to do during labor and birth, and also postpartum period. So looking at the whole thing, really important, totally holistic. So 12 weeks, you might be thinking, well, why is it so long? That's so old school. It's not old school. This is based on neuroscience. It was always based on neuroscience and how our brains work. So your brain is, and your nervous system, which is the driver of your labor, your nervous system and how that functions, that's like, depending how you want to look at it, these are hundreds of thousands of years old. If you're just going to be like focusing on human beings, although that number always gets changed and gets older and older each time, or millions of years if we're looking at mammals, because we are mammals. And that mammal nervous system is the one that's going through labor and birth, and it's primary, right? So it takes 12 weeks to create new neural pathways and to really integrate things. That's just the equipment you're dealing with. That's just the equipment you're dealing with the human body and brain. So that's just the way we're wired. And that you take that time over that time to really integrate things on a deep level, because a lot of us hear negative, scary things about birth, or maybe nothing really. Like we just have no clue. We haven't been around babies. We haven't seen women giving birth. And even if you've seen those things, you need to prepare. And your partner needs to be prepared. So you're not going into this with fear, because fear can really hinder your experience. And so I know we look at technology, we Google things, and we think that we can look things on Instagram, and it's kind of in our mind. And just knowing things superficially in your mind is going to not be very helpful. I do want you to know things in your mind. And I want you to know it in a deep way in your mind. And so that's why the 12 weeks, but also in your body, that you're fully embracing as you're moving forward into your labor and birth and bringing a child into your life. And also in your heart and soul, that it is something that you're fully integrating into yourself and that you're going through with consciousness and readiness and grounded into your labor and birth. And that takes time. It takes time. I had mentioned in that one, the 12 weeks and training, that one of the things that we're working on is relaxation and natural breathing. So we're going to work on a variety of different relaxation techniques, making sure you're really in your normal physiology of your breath, really working on diaphragmatic breathing, or sometimes called abdominal breathing. And so your partner also knows they have this in their body and knows how to help you with this. It reduces fear, most conducive to relaxation, eases through the pain, fear, tension cycle. It's just very helpful to you going into your labor and birth. That's really going to bring you also into tuning into and trusting yourself. So when I teach you things that you can integrate in your own way. And I don't expect you to have any particular type of choices on anything. I really want you to be taking this time to really tapping into yourself and to be trusting yourself. And that's really foundation moving into your labor and birth and into motherhood, your parenting. Really, you're the authority, you're the expert, and that's the guiding force inside of you. Our principle of immediate and continuous contact with your baby. So this was always Dr. Bradley's from the mid-20th century, saying that there shouldn't be separation between mother and baby. And all of current research concurs with that. That's very exciting. So, if you're birthing in a hospital in California, a lot of hospitals here are baby friendly, and they know are more aware of that, having mother and baby together and not doing a bunch of unnecessary things right away. That can be really extended. I want you to know more about this and about it from the baby's perspective and why it's important. And I love that it's a separate thing too, because no matter how your birth goes, like this contact is considered something, it's not separate. For me, it's part of the continuum, but I like that as a separate focus as well, that you know about this. And during that immediate bonding period, and your baby will have the first breastfeeding, and breastfeeding is a whole new world. So I really love going into this a couple times in class, but especially class 12, I go through all the basics, foundations of breastfeeding. I do find from, helping moms with breastfeeding over the last 2 decades that, the number one thing that gets, moms and babies in trouble is really not having a good foundation, not knowing how to start off right. And I think when you have these foundations and you understand the whys and what you can do, it really makes things go better. And even when, someone has to formula feed or supplement, that, the milk part of it's just half. And the other part of breastfeeding is that contact connection with mother and baby, right? So I love looking in a holistic manner and making sure you have all the foundations of that. Our next principle that we really focus on is consumerism and positive communications with your birth team. So let me start with the first one, which is consumerism. So It's really important to be honest about the environment, your environment you're pregnant in, and that you have, you give birth in. Postpartum really affects you. When we look at our world here in the United States, it's based on capitalism. Medical care is based on that, and consumerism as a product is based on economics, efficiency, economy, and those things affect your birth and your experience. And those things aren't your baby. Your baby is in personal relationship with you. You are a family. And we go into a lot of different topics about this so that you can make informed choices going into it, and understanding that you can make choices. I'll go more into that in the next one, but that this is the things that drives healthcare, quote unquote, in our society. And that as a person paying, that you can make choices about that. And that we really want you to have positive communication with your birth team. I want you to have a good relationship with your birth team. I want you to be in a trust relationship with them, but not blindly trusting. Like, this is a person or persons with whom you're consulting, and they're there to support you, and they're doing a service to you, and that you're in the center. And they should really take in consideration your feelings, your choices, and what's best for you and your baby, long-term and holistically, is like how I like it. So I want you to be in good communication, not hiding things or other things from your birth team, but that you're always in good communication, have a good relationship, because it'll make your birth better. Related to that is parents taking responsibility. So as a parent myself, I have 2 young adult daughters, that I know as a parent that it's you're the one really in the driver's seat, and everything that happens affects you and impacts your family. So we'll talk about a lot of different things that you can make choices on and take responsibility for. And that can be your where you give birth, right? That can be your who's your healthcare provider. Now, sometimes those are limited. So then your responsibility comes in, like, communicating, like I said before, and making choices within that model, making informed choices, right? So we'll go over a lot of different things so that you're aware of things and aware of things that you can make choices on. I really want you to take the reins as a parent, because ultimately it's your baby and it's your body. And the things that happen during all this time, you're left with. You're left holding the bag. You're raising this child, and no doctor, no midwife, no nurse, no medical person is going to call you up down the road and say, how's everything going? And did you ever heal properly? Or how's your baby? Or help you look for therapies or anything. They're never going to do that. It is it's you and your family. And so it's really critical that you are feeling like you have agency during all of this, and that your provider is helping you have agency. All of this about giving birth is about transformation and becoming a parent and strengthening that family bond, is how I look at it, which is the opposite of really what's happening in institutionalized birth setting and in our culture in large, which is really about separating, dividing, undermining. So I don't care what decisions you make. Your decisions are your decisions. There's not a right or wrong here, but I want you to know you have a right to be able to make decisions about things, and it is your responsibility, right? We started with natural birth as a blueprint, understanding all the principles that happen, those interlinking processes. And because, pregnancy, labor, and birth, there can sometimes be complications or unforeseen things. Sometimes they're just normal variations of labor. So we do have a whole class devoted to the normal variations of labor, and some of the complications, not every complication, because that's really the domain of your healthcare provider, but really thinking about some common ones, things that you can do ahead of time of pregnancy, also cesarean birth. So from the very beginning, we talk about ways that you can minimize your chance of having an unnecessary cesarean, but there's going to be mothers and babies that need this, and it can happen. So I will also go with you over, what does cesarean birth look like? What are choices that you can make? Especially if it's a scheduled one, I can give you information about that as well. So you want to make sure that, yeah, we talk about this stuff, because it can happen. Any family could have to make a change from what they imagined and wanted as their birth, or to switch things, right? That's just part of life. And then we even go over what's called emergency childbirth or unplanned unassisted birth, in case it's a precipitous or fast birth and your baby comes before you get to your birthplace or before your midwife arrives. And we talk a lot about informed consent and all of that stuff. So I love teaching this class, because this class is about you. It's preparing you in a really deep and lovely way and honest. It's an honest class. I'm not going to beat around the bush about things, but we also have fun too and connect. So I really love that. It's really important that you learn during this time and are not just, trusting on the kindness of strangers. Don't do a blanche du bois there. It's really important that you are, like I said, you live with the outcome. And it's a great time to really, get to know yourself, get to know your partner, get to know what it is that you believe and how you want to go into this. And your baby, it just makes such a big difference in their life when you're prepared, right? Because you're making choices to support them, this little person. And so all of these things we're going through, we go over a lot more than this. There's so many subsections under these major principles, but from natural birth to if you need a cesarean, no matter what type of birth you have all of these other principles that are super important. So that's why I say our class is not just about natural childbirth. It's really about so many different things. It's super beautiful and holistic, and I really love it. And thinking about this, when you're preparing, what happens during this time, especially birth, like pregnancy is absolutely really important. Birth is a transformational time where there's heightened feelings and emotions, and it reverberates out through time. It's not a period, a stop. It doesn't have to define everything, but it does ripple out. And so that's why I really want you to take that time to prepare together. And I really wish for you a happy birthday, a good start, integrated, that you work together as a team, bringing your gorgeous baby into the world. So you can find out more about the Bradley Method at bradleybirth.com and find a local teacher in your area. I teach online and hybrid in Los Angeles. And you can find out more about me, Susan, at naturalbeginningsla.com. You can also find me on Instagram at naturalbeginningsla and on Facebook, susanmartin.mbla. Thank you for spending this time with me. You made it this far. I wish you a happy birth experience, and I hope to be in connection with you. Take care.